I guess this function can also show the name, the player who got it. Okay, now since we will be reading file, we can go ahead and create our file descriptor, and let's create a variable to store the top score. Make sure it's unsigned int because this cannot be negative. And we can also create a variable to store the name, right? Top name. And this also be maybe a character of 100 bytes, just the same as the property of the user struct. Then we will create a user template here called entry. We can use this to look through the file. Let's create an introductory message. We welcome the user with this, and we can go ahead and open our file. We pass in the data file, and at this point we just want to go in there and read something. We don't really want to do anything else, so we can do read only. If we wanted to update, we could use the RDWR. If LD returns -1, it means there was an error. We call the filter function and we pass in. The error occurred in show I score when opening file. At this point, if an error doesn't occur, we can go ahead and do the while loop. We want to read throughout the file and see the player that has the highest score. We can call the read function. From here, we pass in the file descriptor and we can give it the entry that we created, and we want to read the size of the whole struct user. We want to read everything, and we know that whenever you read, it returns the total bytes that was read. Then let's get something from here. Now we can check the top score, that is the high score, if it is greater than our top score. If this statement is true, we set the top score to entry.highscore. Then we can also set the name. Let's use string copy, the inbuilt function. Let's copy the user's name into the top name, so we can do entry.name. Why don't we initially set the top score to 0? We've gotten the top score and also the name of the person who scored it. We can close the file, right? And at this point, we can make a simple comparison to see if the current user is the top score. If that is the case, we will tell him that you are the top score with this. If not, then somebody else is the top scorer. If the top score that we have recorded, if this is greater than player.highscore, then clearly our current user is not the top scorer. You can say somebody has the top score. Else, top score is less than the player high score. It means our player has the highest score. We will do player.highscore. Now once we get here, we are done with everything, so maybe we can do something to show the end. Alright, now as we can see, this function will go inside our file and look for the top scorer, save his name and the top score. If the current user is the top scorer, it will tell him that you are the top scorer. If not, then it will give us the person who is the top scorer and the score that he is using to lead. Let's dive into the next function. So we go to the top and see, after the showing high score, the next function is the jackpot. Why don't we just copy this? We paste it. The implementation of the jackpot function is really simple. All that it will do is that once a user wins a game that involves a jackpot, we call the jackpot function, and it will just increase the user's credit. That is it for the jackpot function. The next function is input name, but I've already defined the input name here. The next function that we have is print cards. Now the print cards will be used for find the ace game. 3 cards will be presented to a user, and the player is supposed to pick one that he thinks is the ace, right? One is ace and the other 2 are queens. Let's copy this, make space for it. Now because we are defining it here, cannot be like that. This is going to be the message. This function pointer is going to be the cards, and this will be user pick, right? Let us give a comment for this function. It will print the 3 cards. Now when this card is called without any user pick, then the user pick, we can pass -1 into it. In that case, this function will print the cards. So it could print like XXX, and it will ask you to choose one card. We can define an index to use for looping. Let's print the message that the user input. After that, we can just make a little design, maybe with tabs. We just want this to align with the number of cards that we have. Then the last printf, we can go ahead and print the contents of the card. Card 0, cards 1, and cards 2. Now at this point we can assess what the user picked. Now if the user pick is -1, it means he has not picked anything yet. We just want to print the content of the card. We can do something like maybe tell the user to choose 1, 2, 3. Else, if the user picks something out of the 3 options, show what the user picked. So we want to do a for loop and show the contents of the card, and we show which cards among them the user picked. So we can do for loop as long as it's not what the user picked. We can print tab. Then here we can use this sign to indicate what the user picked. Let's put this in bracket. They are all under the else. That will be all for the print cards function. The next function that we need to complete before we go and define our games is the take wager function. So we go to the function prototypes and we declare the take wager as this, but actually we need to pass some parameters in there. First of all, we need to pass the available credit and also previous wager. And the reason is that this function allows you to gamble some of your credits. Let's say that you are playing the find the ace game or match the dealer game and you want to gamble some of your credit. You want to gamble 20. Okay, if that is the case, you pass the 20 to this function and the 20 will make sure the total number of credits you want to wager should be less than your available credits. Other than that, you will not be able to play that game. So it makes sense that we pass some parameters. So scroll down and let's copy it and let's give the function a body. We paste it here. Let's give some comment. First, let's declare a variable for the wager and also a variable for total wager. We can ask him how many of your credits do you want to wager, and we can show the available credits. Once we are asking the user, we are expecting an input. We can do a scanf here. We give it the address of the wager. You can wager only positive numbers. Return -1. So -1 means that what he entered in wasn't right. Now if the wager is greater than 1, then we can go ahead and find or calculate the total wager, which should be the wager the user entered plus the previous wager that we passed to the function, right? Okay, perfect. So once we find a total wager, we can do an if statement to make sure that the number of credits the user is trying to gamble, if it is greater than available credit, it means he cannot play the game. Other than that, he can play the game. We return the wager. That will be all for the take wager function. Let us see what else. So now we are left with defining our games. And actually these are the interesting parts. Okay, so we start with this. It will kind of provide a loop and allows us to play the current game over and over again. So for example, if we take a look at our flowchart, in the flowchart we said that the 3 games, pick a number game, no match dealer, and the find ace. At the end we have the opportunity to either play again or not play again. So if we say yes, then we play our current game or the last game again. If we say no, then we are presented with the main menu options. Okay, now this function will give us that opportunity to do that. So let's give it a body here, and the comment will be this function allows us to play the current game again, and also it will update the player data. It will give us a loop and we can keep on playing the game over and over again. So when we come here, we can create the variable and call it play again, and maybe we can just set it to 1. Now we will also create 100 characters, that is an array, and this array will be used for keeping the user's preference. If the user say yes or no, or if he says Y or N instead of yes or no, we will keep that in this character. So probably 100 is too much, right? Let's make it 50. But you don't know, maybe somebody might write, yes, I want to play the game. We are just getting ready for all circumstances. Then let's create our loop. While play again is 1. I want you to scroll to the top of the program, and when we define the struct of a user, we said that there is a variable that holds the current game. This variable is important. We can always print the pointer to this game. But the current game that we are playing is always set to this address. When we come here, we can say, maybe for the bargain purposes, pointer of current game. player.current game, we need to check if the current game didn't return -1. Once again, take a look at the flowchart. How do we know that a game is over? Now, after each game is ended, there is a return value. Whenever an error occurs, a -1 will be returned from these games. So as long as the return value is not -1, then we know that the game was played without any error. If player.current game, so the game will be called, you can play the game and it will return. So if the return is not equal to -1, it means the game played successfully. After playing each game, probably you lost a credit, or let's say you won a credit. This is the place where we can choose to update the high score. We can check the player.credit and we will see if it is greater than the high score that he has. If that is the case, we do player.highscore equals player.credit. After doing that, maybe we can tell the player the credit that he has and we will update the player. Just as we have updated the high score, you now have this credit, right? After showing him his credit, we can call update player data, which we have already defined. If you don't know, we scroll up here. Right here, we have defined update player data. So come here and let's call that function to update player data. We call it here. After doing that, then we can give the user option to play again. Like maybe, would you like to play again? There's a question. At this point, we are asking the user if he wants to play again or not. Let's get his input. We can do select. We can set the first character to end line. Then we can do a while loop. While select is equal to this, then we will get the user's input. Select. Okay, so now we have the user's input. So we are going to check the input whether it's a yes or a no. If the user say yes, it means that play again is still 1 because play again is already 1. Right, so we will not even check whether it's yes, but we are interested whether the user said no. Show him what he chose. Then we will do this select. All right. We do a simple if statement. If the user chose no, if the first character is n, it means the user doesn't want to play again, right? So we will set play again to 0. Immediately we set play again to 0, it means this loop will not run when it comes to the end. But now let us look at this whole if statement. We can say that if current game doesn't return -1, it means the game played with no error. Other than that, there was an error. Okay, so we have to set play again to 0. Okay, so two situations where we will not play the game again. The first situation is if the user decides not to play again and he enters no here, or if an error occurred during the game, then we will not be able to play the game again. The play the game function is done. So at this point, let's look at what else we need to define. All right, we are done with the play the game. So now we will go ahead and define the 3 games. You guys should brace yourself because we are going to the interesting part. And I want to remind you guys that if you are liking this video, subscribe to this channel. And once again, credit to this game goes to the book called The Art of Exploitation. If you really want to dig behind the C programming language to know what is behind the hood, you can take a look at it. Like and subscribe. Let's do this.